Alright, so last time I was playing this, I was doing free build and was like trying to show off a little bit of the new update with the water cooling and shit. Um, it's pretty cool. You can kind of do whatever. If anyone saw that video, they would have seen this thing. Um, the I started thinking about it and it's like, okay, how realistic is this game? I don't run a Threadripper. Most people don't run a Threadripper. So I thought about what if I kind of made something a little more realistic. So then I started thinking about it. I'm like, well, why don't I do either like an AMD build or do even a different, more mainstream version on Intel? So I started thinking about it a little bit more, and on top of it, I even had said in the last video that I cannot stand these god-awful green fittings. I honestly don't even know why I put them in there. But so I was thinking of, a couple different things that I could do to sort of change this and make it more towards something that someone's going to actually build in real life. Because let's face it, to run SLI 1080 Ti's and a Threadripper 1950X, it's not realistic to the average consumer when, who's got that kind of money. I'm sure there are people out there that do, but the average human being isn't going to spend that kind of cash on, a computer. So I started thinking about it. I'm like, okay, my personal computer is a Ryzen 7 2700X, 32 gigs, 3200 megahertz of RAM. I run a single GTX 1080. Eventually, I'll probably upgrade to an RTX 2080 or 2080 Ti, depends on, whatever. I don't really care what most people say. People are going to sit there and tell me how it's stupid to run AMD, whatever. They could suck a dick because last time I checked, they didn't fund my build. Eventually, I'm going to build, something different, and it'll more than likely be a high-end Intel. But for the time, it was, something that I wanted to do with AMD. So, then the thought came, why don't I see, what both AMD and Intel systems would do in the game. If you do 8700K with, a 2700X in synthetic benchmarking, they're pretty damn close. Obviously, on single thread benchmarks, the Intel is going to blow away the AMD. And in, real life gaming scenarios, Intel edges it out a little bit. But it's still not like, the AMD, the 2700X is anything to, be ashamed of on that part. So I just kind of wanted to see, what I could do. And, obviously the fittings. And then I started thinking about it and I'm like, okay, what if I water cooled the graphics card separately, use the 360 radiator for the CPU, and then use like a 240 or 280 for the graphics card and cooled the GPU that way. How far could I push it? I know like on my 2700X, I pushed it to 4.35 gigahertz, but it wasn't stable. I was able to run, Cinebench, I think 2 or 3 times, and then I was getting blue screens, and I ended up backing it down to 4.2, and it was fairly stable. And then it was just to the point of where I was barely gaining anything over the stock boost clock of 4.15, so I just left it alone, just because to me it wasn't really worth it. I use my computer mainly for gaming and making stupid YouTube videos, so do I really need to push it when, sometimes it's not really worth it? Come on. So right now what I'm basically doing is I'm just tearing apart everything that I had done. Might have to take this side panel off to get that header off. That way I can just test my theory to see if I can even come close to what I would get more of in a real world scenario. I'm still going to run probably just a single 1080 Ti, but I'm going to water cool it. It's something that the average consumer, especially now that the RTXs are out, the average consumer is going to be able to afford. So I think what I'll do right now is I'll start with the Intel side. I'm going to keep the memory the same. I'm going to run probably just 32 gigs of 3000 or 3200, whatever they have. Run more of a more common, I'm thinking either like the ASUS, probably the gaming edition, because this one, I think these are the same, other than one's mini, one's macro or micro, and then it looks like this one has Wi-Fi on it. But we could do this one. I don't think it really would matter. Let's just do this one. And let's see what it does. I've never really overclocked a 8700K, but I would assume that you can still push it close to 485, somewhere in that area. So we'll see what we can do. Get our thermal paste on here. We'll keep most of the components the same, obviously minus the motherboard and the CPU. Open. We'll still run a M.2 NvMe. Oops. We'll run the same one for both systems just to kind of compare. Where the fuck? There it is. Actually, I'll open the clips. We won't go anything too ridiculous. Maybe we'll do Patriot. Now we'll go with this one. Run 32 gigs out of the system. Let's see if this is even possible. They have a 240 and they have a 280. We'll go 240. Oh, it actually does work. I figured the case would allow it, but I didn't know if the game realistically would. So we'll go. I think I left the yeah, I did leave the reservoir in. Oh shit. more than likely that 240 for one graphics card is probably a little overkill, but it doesn't really matter. Biggest thing is running the loops, or running the loop. That may take a quick second of how the hell I'm going to do that, because I didn't really plan that out beforehand. Probably just run black fittings. It's weird that it'd have been nice if they rotated it. That way I could just go straight down. So let me see. I think what I'll end up doing is going from here to the CPU. Get this straight. That's not what I want to do. If I do that, I'll block off that. So bring this down. I'm going to have to drop this considerably. Probably have to remove this corner. It's nice that they give you that yellow line that shows you what you're doing. Problem is, I'm completely fucking lost. So if we go from the radiator to the pump, kind of bend this like that. So these two radiators have to connect somehow. I don't know if this is going to work. So what we'll do, shit, that's the right way to actually do this would be to have a separate reservoir, which I don't think we can do. If we went with a 100, yeah, we can't do one. Fuck. Alright, well. So, my thought process is go from here to here. Looks like shit, but whatever. Go from here to this top radiator. Gotta kick this out. kind of looks okay, semi-okay, I don't know. I guess what we can do, just throw the power, oops, it would help if I plugged everything in. Oops. That looks terrible. Because it's kind of monochromatic. Almost thinking, I wonder if they have any kind of like silver. That might look cool. No, I'll just do the black. This might look cool. Kind of did a little more work than I needed to, especially since that 360 could have provided plenty of cooling for one graphics card and a CPU. So I kind of went about it in a roundabout, fucking stupid way. So if we're gonna do it, may as well do it right. I'm just gonna go straight white. God damn, that's bright. Like the radiators look good, the RAM looks good, the Corsair logo looks good, but everything else looks really fucking bright. Let's see what happens when we put all this shit back together. What was funny is, yeah, I don't have the USB in, but it automatically had an OS installed on the computer. Even though I had switched out the motherboard, the CPU, the RAM, and even I didn't use the same, I only used the 500 gig NvMe. So let's see. I mean, it's definitely cool as far as, you know, it's sitting at 42C, 41, and the CPU is cool. Or, I'm sorry, the GPU. Kind of overclock the... Might be a little too much. Yeah. Brought up the GPU temp considerably. shut it down and overclock the CPU. Oops, that's not what I want to do. Alright, we'll check the... I mean, it definitely clocked, but it wasn't too ridiculous. It's a little bit warmer. Let's see what happens if we run 3D Mark. And we blue screened. Because I didn't. I think 145 would be way too much. Let's try 140. Blue screen again. You fucking kidding me? Well, at least we didn't blue screen. Definitely looks pretty cool. It's a little bit more reasonable for the average person to purchase too. You're still probably talking 3,000-ish, maybe a little bit less, depending on prices. So reasonable is a relative term. We'll just see what we get as far as our benchmark for this. And see if we can build 2700X in a similar fashion. So we did 10,052 for a single GPU. We'll check the real Hall of Fame and see if it's even close. Well, it's a little exaggerated, I think, because that is... Oh, it's just regular Time Spy. Thought it was Time Spy Extreme. So yeah, it's definitely lower, but you're talking competing with a 2080 Ti with a ridiculous i9, almost $2,000 processor. It'd blow the budget for this entire build almost out for just one processor. We don't even come close to the top 100. We're probably not even the top 500. Hopefully soon they come out with an update with the new 20 series. It'd also be cool if they'd let us do different 3D Mark benchmarks. So yeah, then what we'll do is I'll pull this out. Oh shit, I gotta drain the loop. Actually, I could probably just... Come on. Might be able to just unplug everything. No, they're gonna make me take the fucking CPU out and everything else. Make me take this out. Alright. So on the X470 platform, they don't have the identical one that we just used, but we'll use similar. Okay, it doesn't have like the... Oh yeah, it does. It's pretty cool. Oh, you gotta be shitting me. Oh no, it is. It's right. It's just the arm that goes down. So we'll just use... The fuck is going on? Why won't it... There it goes. Actually, I think you're supposed to install it there. That's probably the secondary. Yeah. Alright. Put the thermal paste on. Put our CPU block. We'll use the same Patriot. So that way there's no major components other than obviously the CPU. We'll use the same GPU. It's 1070. There's 1080 Ti. Oh, shit. Try and make this as quick as humanly possible without... Oh, fucker. Shitting me. Doesn't have to be pretty. Not for this anyways. Can I fill a pump? No, are you... Oh, that makes sense. Kind of. I could fill it, but it wouldn't automatically prime. Alright, so let's try this again. There we go. Oh, that's cool. It saved all the settings. For the life of me, I don't remember. That was $495. I thought this was... Fuck. 175? Something like that? Maybe not. Maybe I only did 100. Whatever. Obviously, even the GPU was running a little bit cooler. It was in like the 43, 44s. I don't know why. I don't know, maybe I had different bends or, who knows. Obviously, this is probably only running at 3.7, which is the factory clock. So it's obviously going to be about 10 degrees cooler than an Intel running at 4.7. So we'll shut this down, get into the BIOS, and Now it's at, holy shit, it's at 4.3. I'm surprised that they would have it that high. Oops. Just gonna turn that on to 3200. It's 4.3 is fairly high for that. I mean, it's running pretty good. It's 72, 73. GPU's barely being stressed. I mean, we're barely using any power. The 1000 watt power supply might be a little overkill. Could probably obviously get away with 550, 600, 500 even probably. Oh, it jumped up to almost 400. There it goes over 400. So yeah, 500 would be a little on the low side. I don't know if I'd want to build a computer with, you know, even on a synthetic benchmark, only having 44 watts of headroom left. So we got a 980-44. But it seemed like we could probably push the 2700X a little bit harder. Let's see if we push the 1080 a little bit harder. I wish you could click on this and then manually type in what you wanted, because it's so fucking sensitive. I'll try, oops. We'll try 4500. I'm gonna throw some more wattage at it. Or, I'm sorry, voltage. We'll get the system info up so that way, let's actually, I should have, yeah, see it jumped considerably. We're almost at the same temperature that we're just a little over what the temperature of the 8700K is on the factory clock. And we blue screened. Alright. So they're recommending not to go above 1.5. So if we blue screen again, then we know that we got to drop the clock. Or the multiplier, I guess. Because we're just... Oops. Too much on the... what the fuck's it doing? It's dropping like crazy. Holy shit, it's throttling. It is not liking this one bit. If it were my computer, I would never even attempt this. This is strictly because of the fact that it's just a game that... If the game tells me I fried my CPU, oh well. if I'm not mistaken, in that section in the beginning of this, that doesn't happen in the real 3D market. I don't believe it starts that way. I don't remember, but I think that's the CPU test. I mean, this is a kind of dangerous, I think. I've never seen mine get this high. I'd probably freak out if I saw it. But we are almost 100 watts more just by bumping all the other stuff. Even the GPU is starting to get up there. Okay. Yeah, look at we had an amazing graphics score, but the CPU test was horseshit. It just was way too much. I think between the voltage and just the multipliers, way too much for for the CPU. We'll bump it back a whole one on the multiplier. I mean, it's fairly close. 9844 to 10052 on a synthetic benchmark it's pretty close. Close enough anyways that you can't really argue one is better or worse than the other. Looks like this test is definitely going better. You know, it really basically, I think anymore it comes down to preference, or even just specifically, you know, price. I've seen 8700Ks in the 370s, and I've seen 2700Xs in the 260s, 270s. So if the $100 doesn't really make a difference to you, or if it does make a difference to you because you can take that $100 and put it elsewhere, then it kind of answers its own question of which one is, you know, better for an individual. You know, either way you're still going to spend almost $3,000 on this one. You know, you could get a regular GTX 1080 in the $500 range and save yourself $300. You know, that alone makes up a huge difference in, you know, in CPU cost or anything else. So yeah, we're at 10,422, and that exceeded, you know, in a synthetic that technically beat out the Intel. So I mean, in a sense, it's sort of accurate in the fact that when you put two identical systems with just the difference of the processor of the current gen and, you know, this i7 versus the Ryzen 7 2700X, you can't really falter one way or the other. Obviously, if they did, you know, a single thread rendering, you know, Intel blows AMD out of the water. But yeah, I just wanted to try it, see if it even would be remotely close. I'm glad that they do actually have something as far as some sort of realism. You know, obviously you're not bending rigid tube as fast as the game is, but in a whole, it's a fun game. I haven't really done a whole lot as far as, you know, the real game. You know, I've done a few days where I'm getting jobs and stuff, and it's cool, but I figure this is more fun to see this than, you know, just doing antivirus removal and all, or virus removal and all that other stupid shit that no one really cares about, because most people, when they want to see gaming computers or something a little bit more crazy as far as builds, you know, this stuff is definitely more on the enthusiast level. But yeah, it was pretty cool. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, give me a thumbs down. Subscribe. There'll be more information in the description below. Thanks for checking it out. See you guys later.